Good morning. My name is Jennifer Tom.
And I'm Darlene Ripple.
We are excited to be here because it's 10:15 and it's time for coffee. Grab your coffee and join us because today we are talking about overwhelm, overwhelming, overwhelm. I can't even say the word because it's a thing. So are you out there and wondering about overwhelm? Darlene, tell us more about overwhelm and why did we choose this topic, my friend?
We chose this topic because it's something that we've all felt and we often feel. I don't know about you, but as I go through life, there's sometimes it kind of just hits me and you get overwhelmed, that overwhelming feeling. And we often wonder why. Like, why is this happening? This is uncomfortable. I'm feeling stressed. I don't know how to go forward and I'm overwhelmed. So it's something that we most of us have experienced it. And in grief, it often happens more than when we're grieving, we've had a loss, we often have that feeling of overwhelming. So we want to talk about that today.
I love that. I love that so much. I have another question. Today, I'm just gonna ask questions because I this topic is very dear to my heart. I have lived it. I I I I mean, how many of us don't get overwhelmed? Maybe some of you have managed how to deal with overwhelm. Is overwhelm, Darlene, the same as anxiety feelings?
I would say overwhelmed is a little different than anxiety, although they're kind of like paired together.
Mhm.
Anxiety is when we are worried about things, when we're thinking about all the bad things that could happen, all the things that have happened in the past. We are worried about what's going to happen in the future. Overwhelming, at least to me, overwhelming is just that feeling that everything's coming on top of us. It's just like we're getting poured on by a whole bunch of stuff, and we feel like we don't have the capacity to handle what's coming or how we're feeling.
I love that so much. So today we are going to give you the number one tip from lessons learned from our life and loss lessons learned. The number one tip on how to deal with overwhelm. If you're watching us or watching us later, how do you deal with overwhelm? What causes overwhelm? And thirdly, do you ever experience overwhelm? That's the topic today. And we're just here not as your friend to share how we've learned to deal with overwhelm. So, number one, I have to say what causes overwhelm for me, because I have experienced it multiple times, is high stress, meaning high stress from work, high stress from relationship, high stress from. So, how do you deal with that, darling, when you're overwhelmed because of high stress? How can we manage that? Because I'm sure I'm not the only one who has high stress. Sometimes.
The number one key, I think, to managing overwhelming is to acknowledge that it's happening. Okay? So often we just it becomes habit. When something happens, it's like a trigger, something activates us, because again, that activates that stress. We usually just out of habit respond how we've always responded. And usually that is to try to avoid it, to try to do everything that we can to stop it from happening. And then that actually just brings on more overwhelming feelings when we can't do that. So the number one thing, if you are feeling overwhelmed, is to stop and acknowledge what you're feeling. What's going on? Is there something that's activated? What's happened in the last, right, 5 minutes or 10 minutes that has got you triggered, has got you feeling these emotions? And when we can acknowledge that we have a trigger, which is a normal and natural response, that we get triggered by things around us, then we can acknowledge it and then we can turn that into curiosity. What's happening? Instead of, oh no, and just this can't be happening to me, I have to stop it. And so again, when we can develop that curiosity, And then also when we have compassion for ourselves, right? It's okay to have those feelings, have compassion for yourself. Then we can start figuring out what's triggering us, and then how do we take one step towards some kind of action.
Darling, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. If you're joining us, please tell us how you deal with overwhelm. I was just saying one of mine is high stress, and Darlene just shared with us the first thing we need to do is acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it's happening. Thank you so much. That's because it's we don't stop to acknowledge and think where it's coming from. That is so good. The other way that I get overwhelmed is when I don't do self-care. And I like what you said that sometimes I was just writing notes, even though we're here, I'm still also learning from it. It's what has happened. Overwhelm comes with what happened an hour ago or five, whatever, right? I love even what Brendan says. Overwhelm happened. It's determined by what happened 72 hours before the trigger. And I'm like, okay, so it's acknowledging, reflecting, why am I getting overwhelmed? What happened 72 hours ago or 3 hours ago? And then just sitting back and finding out where it's coming from. Is that clear? Right? Because I don't do that. I just get overwhelmed and try to do everything at the same time, and I get more overwhelmed, and all of a sudden I flip out. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about self-care. How can self-care support us with our overwhelm?
Well, again, one we need to have connection when we have self-care. Like we need to be some self-care we do by ourselves, but sometimes we need other people, and we need to be able to have some way of reflecting back what we're feeling, and how do we develop that curiosity where we actually have. Sometimes when we just sit alone, we find like we're just going in our head and we just go off and we don't have anybody to actually reflect off of us. So one way of self-care, and we're talking a lot about this at Horse Club, is one way is to come to a group or come to that safe place where you can like kind of get curiosity and get reflection. What we love about the Horse Club is the horses will reflect. They're like a mirror, your mirror. And when you come and start interacting with horses, they'll reflect what you're feeling. So it actually helps us figure out that, like what's going on in our life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So if you've not heard about our Horse Club, please check it out on our website. It's there are specific dates that if you're in our area, you can come and join us. And Darlene, I truly want you to share what happens when you show up at the Horse Club. Do you want to share how she's an expert with horses? I am not. So I'll let her say it because I might say it wrong, but it's so powerful. I have seen it. I've witnessed it. So friends, if you're out there and you have a Horse Club close to you, check it out because what Darlene is about to say, it's amazing. It's one way of dealing with overwhelm. Tell us that.
And so I think some of the experiences we've had with horses, some of the experiences I've had with horses is that when I go out to them and when we try to get in the present, but when I go out to them, they actually, it's like this experience where they come around you. This is what I love about them, and they kind of hold space for you. So sometimes I just go out in the pasture, and I have 3 horses in the herd, and so if I'm sitting out there, one time I took my coffee and sat out there. They come and they surround you, and they kind of they invite you to be part of that herd. And as you're sitting there, they actually surround you, they actually join you, and they actually hold space for you. And this is what I love is that we just had another experience when somebody's going through trials and trying to figure this stuff out and actually starting to voice. When you actually start voicing what's going on in your head, the horse actually starts paying attention and starts, like, you have to be there to see that horse who for a while was just eating grass and not paying any attention. All of a sudden that horse stops and just stands there and stands with you. And you can see it in their expression. They just hold that space for you. And that gives us the compassion, right? To share and sort through these feelings, because that's really, really hard to have all these feelings. And how do you process all those feelings? So that's just one way a our horse club helps, is we've seen that come around, just come around a person and the horse just taking that space for people.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. What about the heart? Like, how does it?
The heart?
Yeah, please. That is the most interesting fact that I have never heard before, and it works, and I've seen it.
Mm-hmm. So horses again have this amazing heart connection with us, and so if we're not near them, if we're within 40 feet of them, approximately. So when they're kind of around us, their heart actually connects with our heart, and our heartbeat lowers, and we get this calming effect. Because horses, when they are in that state, are in a calm thing, and that heartbeat affects us. So that's why people will say, sometimes people will come say, I just come around the horses and I start feeling calm. And that's because of that heart connection. So when they're further away, they just fill us with calmness. Which is amazing. When we get close, when we're in close proximity, that's when they start reflecting what we're feeling. And then that can help us. But when we calm down, they calm down. And they actually can calm us down. And you can tell when a horse is calmed down, they'll actually start licking, chewing. You can just see them relax when we're vulnerable and we have our feelings and we're honest with ourselves. Then that calming happens, and it's just amazing to see how they reflect us.
I love this topic so much. I love this topic so much. Overwhelm is the thing. Overwhelm is happening in our society, right? And if we can know different modalities of how to deal with overwhelm, I mean, we'll start living fully. So the whole of this month, we'll be talking of overwhelm. Thank you for giving us the heart. I hope you gain something about overwhelm, because this will be the topic for the month, about overwhelm and how do we deal with our own overwhelm. By the end of the month, we'll be sharing personal stories, how we dealt with overwhelm. I love this one, information overload. I think sometimes, like social media, watching the news, it does give us feelings of anxiety and what's everything that's going wrong. So how do we deal that? That's the topic for next week. You don't want to miss our Wednesday live, because we're gonna come with personal stories. Dylan is gonna tell us more about horse connection, horse club, and how to deal with overwhelm, because it's a thing.
It is.
So until next Wednesday, Dylan, do you have something to close with? Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, again, curiosity and compassion, right? Be curious about what you're feeling, and then have great compassion for yourselves and others, because sometimes other people are triggered around us. So have compassion, have curiosity, and start acknowledging what you're feeling. And you'll start on that journey of healing.
I love it. So until next Wednesday, we love you and connect with us.